Hi, now that we study the section, the 6.C, the equal principal repayments. So this gives a pretty different cash flow compared to the total payments, the 6.8. Okay, so the example one. A loan of $1,000 is repaid by equal annual amount of principal for 10 years at 6% annual effective interest. So yeah, and determine the schedule. So the equal annual amount of principal. So basically every year that we repay $100 of principal. So basically the PT is equal to 100 for T is equal to 1 to 10. So previously RT is constant, but here the PT is constant. Okay, so now that we want to determine the schedule. At first, it's clear that it takes 10 years to repay, because 100 times 10 is 1,000. Okay, so now that we consider the RT and IT. IT is actually the interest minus previous balance. So this is always true. And the PT and the BT. And the balance at time 0 is 1,000. And our assumption is that the principal repayment is $100 each. So $100, $100, $100, and so on. So actually, if we include interest, we have to pay more in the first few years. And the balance gets smaller by 100 each year. So balance just is the decreasing arithmetic sequence. And finally, it becomes 0 at time 10. Yep. So now that we can calculate the I sub t. So I sub t is the interest accumulated accrued on this BT. So for example, this one, the BT, B0 is equal to 1,000. So at t is equal to 1, we have to pay the interest of 6% times 1,000. So that means it is 60. So I1 is equal to I times B0. So this is 0.06 times 1,000. So this is 60. So the same thing for the second year and so on. So second one that we have $900. So 6% of $900 is 54. So this becomes 54. Then at time 3, 6% of 800. So that becomes 48. And finally, you can see that the maybe the B9. B9 is 100, and the 100 times 6% is just 6. So this becomes 6. So in this way, that we can calculate the accumulated, interest for each term. So RT is the total of IT and PT. So this becomes 160 at time 1, 154 at time 2, 148 at time 3, and so on. And so at time 10, we pay $106. So to make the equal principal payment, the total payment should be larger for earlier years. Yeah, so what's the total? So the payment total is 1,000. That is clear. And how about the others? So this is actually the 6 to 60. So actually, if you take the sum of these 10, it basically 66 times 5, so 330. So the RT is 1,330. So 1,000 is for principal, and 330 is interest. Okay, so now that we generalize this case a little bit. So in general, okay, so if we consider the standard case, maybe it's convenient to make the balance at time 0 is equal to 1. So we have the T, RT, IT, PT, and BT. And we assume that the T is equal to, say, the 1 to N. Then T is equal to 0, balance is 1. Then what happens? The equal principal payments, so the PT is equal to 1 over N each time. Maybe we need a little more space. So 1, 2, N. So 1 over N each time. So 1 over N and the 1 over N. So the total principal repayment is equal to 1. Then what is RT and IT? So IT we have to calculate first. So IT is so BT times interest. So this is the I times the BT minus 1. So the previous balance times interest is the interest we have to pay. So 1 times I is equal to I. So I1 is equal to I. And how about I2? So I2 actually balance becomes 1 minus 1 over N. So that means, okay, so this is actually the N minus 1 over N. So the, at time 2, the I2 is equal to the 1, sorry, the N minus 1 over N times I. And we continue. So the next term, so basically we subtract 1 over N. So this is N minus 2 over N. So we have the, maybe we can write, this is the N minus 2 over Ni. Then gradually the interest part decreases. Then the last one is the 1 over N times I, because the at N minus 1, the balance is 1 minus N minus 1 over N. That is 1 over N. So this is 1 over Ni. So the RT is the summation. So that means this is the 1 over N plus I. And the second one is 1 over N plus N minus 1 over Ni. And 1 over N plus the 1 over N. Maybe 1 over 2, okay, 2 over Ni. And finally, this is 1 over N plus 1 over Ni. And so you can see the total interest is the N plus 1 over 2 over I. Because if we take summation of these terms, so 1 and these terms, basically this is the sum of 1 to N. Okay, so the sum of 1 to N, then divide by N. So sum of 1 to N is the, by formula, the N times N plus 1 over 2. So then we divide by N. So that becomes N plus 1 over 2I. So yeah, RT is, total of RT is 1 plus N plus 1 over 2I. So this is the general, the schedule of the equal principal repayments.